Your hospital bills are piling up after a New York accident, yet you still don't know if you even have a case. The driver blames you, the insurer stalls, and the rent is due next week. Miss the key rule of negligence here, and you could be stuck paying every dollar yourself. In the next few minutes, I'll unpack the 4 parts of negligence and New York's pure comparative fault rule in plain English. Watch now so you can counter lowball offers, claim every dollar you're owed, and focus on healing instead of focusing on the mounting debt. If you've been injured in New York and need to understand what it takes to win your personal injury case, everything comes down to one critical legal concept: negligence. Hi, I'm New York personal injury attorney Brett Harrison, and mastering negligence is foundational in determining whether you recover full compensation for your injuries, your medical bills, your lost wages, and pain and suffering. In New York, negligence is defined as the failure to exercise the degree of care that a reasonably prudent person would exercise under similar circumstances. Wow, that was a mouthful. Now, that might sound like legal jargon, but let me break this down in simple, practical terms that matter to your case. Think of it this way. We all have a duty to act reasonably and not cause harm to others. That sounds reasonable, right? When someone fails in that duty and you get hurt as a result, that could be, and that is, negligence. But proving negligence in court requires more than just showing someone made a mistake. You need to establish 4 specific elements, and all 4 must be present for your case to succeed. Now let's discuss the 4 elements of negligence you must prove. The first element is duty. This means the person who injured you had a legal obligation to act with reasonable care towards you. In most situations, this duty exists automatically. Drivers have a duty to operate their vehicle safely. Property owners have a duty to maintain their premises in a reasonably safe condition. Doctors have a duty to provide competent medical care. These duties aren't just moral obligations, they're legal requirements under New York law. Now, number 2, the second element is breach of duty. This is where you prove the other party failed to meet their obligation to act reasonably. Maybe a driver was texting while driving, or a store owner failed to clean up a spill, or a doctor misdiagnosed a clear condition. The key question is, did their actions fall below what a reasonable person would have done in the same situation? Here's something crucial to understand about New York law. We don't require perfection. The standard isn't whether someone made the absolute best decision possible. The standard is whether they acted as a reasonably careful person would have acted. This is determined by looking at what the defendant actually did versus what they should have done. Number 3, the third element. The third element is causation. And this is often where cases get complicated. You must prove that the defendant's breach of duty actually caused your injuries. In New York, we apply what's called the but-for test. But for the defendant's negligent actions, would your injuries have occurred? If the answer is no, then you've established causation. But there's another layer to causation called proximate cause. Even if someone's negligence was a factual cause of your injury, the law only holds them responsible if your injury was a foreseeable result of their actions. This prevents liability from extending to every remote possibility. 4. The fourth and final element, damages. You must have actually suffered harm that can be compensated with money. This includes medical expenses, lost wages, pain and suffering, and other losses that flow from your injury. Without real damages, there's no personal injury case, even if someone was clearly negligent. Now, let's discuss New York's comparative negligence law and its effects on your case. Now, here's where New York law gets particularly important for your case. This is where the rubber meets the road. New York follows what's called pure comparative negligence. This means that even if you're partially at fault for your own injury, you can still recover damages. But your compensation, it'll be reduced by your percentage of fault. Let me give you a real example. Say you're crossing a street and get hit by a speeding car, but you were jaywalking at the time. The jury might find that the driver was 80% at fault for speeding and you were 20% at fault for jaywalking. So that means, let's say your total damages were $100,000. You would recover $80,000, your damages reduced by 20% your share of the fault. This is different from some other states that completely bar recovery if you're even slightly at fault. New York's approach means that most injury cases have potential value, even when the injured person bears some responsibility. The comparative negligence analysis happens at trial, where the jury considers all the evidence and assigns percentages of fault to each party. Insurance companies know this, which is why they often try to shift blame to you during settlement negotiations. So don't let them intimidate you with arguments about your own fault. That's exactly what the comparative negligence system in New York is designed to address. Now let's discuss common types of negligence in New York personal injury cases. Motor vehicle accidents represent the largest category of negligence cases in New York. Driver negligence can include speeding, distracted driving, drunk driving, failure to yield, or not following traffic laws. New York Vehicle and Traffic Law Section 1180 requires drivers to proceed at a speed that's reasonable and prudent under the conditions. When drivers violate this or other traffic laws, it creates what lawyers call negligence per se, essentially automatic proof of negligence. Now, premises liability cases involve property owner negligence. Under New York law, property owners have a different duty depending on why you were on their property. They owe the highest duty to business invitees. In other words, customers in stores, for example. The landmark case, Basso v. Miller, established that property owners must regularly inspect their premises and fix dangerous conditions or warn visitors about them. Now let's discuss medical malpractice. That involves healthcare provider negligence. In New York, medical professionals must provide care that meets the accepted standard of practice in their field. This standard is typically established through expert testimony from other medical professionals. The key case, Toth v. Community Hospital, established that patients must prove the doctor deviated from accepted medical practice and that this deviation caused their injury. Now let's discuss slip and fall cases, which are commonly referred to as premises liability claims. New York courts have established that property owners aren't insurers of visitor safety, but they do have a duty to maintain their property in a reasonably safe condition. The case Gordon v. American Museum of Natural History clarified that owners must have either actual notice of a dangerous condition or constructive notice, meaning the condition existed long enough that they should have discovered it through reasonable inspection. Now, let's talk about proving negligence, evidence that matters. Documentation is absolutely critical in negligence cases. Police reports, medical records, photographs of the accident scene, and witness statements all help establish what happened and who was at fault. The sooner you gather this evidence, the better, because memories fade and physical evidence can disappear. Expert testimony often makes or breaks negligence cases. For example, an accident reconstruction expert, they can help explain how a crash occurred. A medical expert, they can testify about your injuries and treatment. In premises liability cases, safety experts might testify about proper maintenance standards. Witness testimony can also be powerful, especially from neutral third parties who saw exactly what happened. Their observations about the defendant's actions and the conditions at the time of your accident can support your negligence claim. Surveillance video has become increasingly important. Many businesses, intersections, and public areas now have cameras that might have captured your accident. This evidence can be crucial, but it's often deleted after a short period, so it's extremely important to identify and preserve it quickly. Now, let's talk about New York's notice requirements and time limits. If your injury involves a government entity, like a city bus, a poorly maintained sidewalk, or government building, for example, New York has special notice requirements. Under New York General Municipal Law, Section 50E, you typically must file a notice of claim within 90 days of your accident. This is much shorter than the normal statute of limitations, and failing to meet this deadline, quite honestly, can destroy your case. For most personal injury cases in New York, you have 3 years from the date of your accident to file a lawsuit under Civil Practice Law and Rules Section 214. However, there are exceptions. Medical malpractice cases must generally be filed within 2.5 years. Cases involving government entities may have shorter deadlines. So, don't wait to investigate your case. Evidence disappears, witnesses move away, or forget details, and legal deadlines approach whether you're ready or not. Now let's discuss why professional legal help matters in negligence cases. Insurance companies have teams of lawyers and investigators working to minimize what they pay on claims. They understand negligence law. They know how to gather evidence that supports their position, and they're skilled at finding ways to blame the injured person. An experienced personal injury attorney, we level the playing field. We know how to investigate negligence claims, gather the right evidence, work with experts, and present your case effectively. We understand the nuances of New York negligence law and how to apply legal precedents to strengthen your position and for your voice to be heard. More importantly, we handle the legal complexities while you just focus on recovery. Dealing with the insurance companies, filing court papers, meeting deadlines, and building a strong case requires legal expertise and significant time you should be spending on getting better. Now, moving forward, what you've learned and what's next, understanding negligence gives you the foundation to evaluate your personal injury case. You now know that successful cases require proving duty, breach, causation, and damages. You understand how New York's comparative negligence law protects your right to compensation, even if you bear some fault. And you're aware of the critical importance of the evidence and timing in building a strong case. But here's what you need to know. Choosing the right attorney isn't just about finding someone who understands the law, and local connections of your lawyer can make or break your case and affect the outcome. New York's legal landscape varies dramatically between different courts, judges, and local practices that only experienced local attorneys truly understand. My next video covers exactly this critical decision, why hiring a local New York lawyer is crucial to your case. This is essential information because understanding how local knowledge, relationships, and court experience directly impact your settlement and trial results could mean the difference between a mediocre outcome and a maximum compensation for your injuries. The difference between local and out of area or out of state representation is more significant than most people realize, and choosing wrong could cost you thousands of dollars in lost compensation. Don't make this costly mistake because you didn't know what to look for. See you over there.